If you're the sort of person to be offended by good old English fun, then really don't watch this video. This video is me reading a book by a chap called Julian Lilywhite, who's quite arrogant, really, but really quite funny. His arrogance is quite funny. Anyway, some people will find this offensive, although I think it's devilishly funny. But if you're the sort of person who does get offended, then don't watch it. Don't put yourself through it. But if you understand English humour, lavatorial humour, and such things, then by all means give it a go. But don't blame me if you find it offensive. No. Oh, this is Street Fighting for Gentlemen by Julian Lilywhite, pugilist. Read by me, Sophia Lionheart. Street Fighting for Gentlemen by Julian Lilywhite, pugilist. So, I'm going to read you some of this book, but not all of it, as a little taster, to see what you think. So, Julian wrote, I dedicate this book to street fighters of all classes, for without each other we would have nothing, and I am mightily partial to prime British beef, not in a homosexual manner, you understand. Wherever I go, I am lauded and applauded. The introduction is written by Aubrey Longbottom, Marquess of Coxpiddle. I have known Julian Lilywhite. Actually, at home, the children call him Polio Pony. The wife still calls him the Caliper Kid. I've always referred to him affectionately as Fluffy Arse. But this is the lad's book, and so I'll call him Lilywhite. I've known Lilywhite since he popped out of the womb. His pa and I have always been great chums since, a long time ago. There was always an odd boy, but once his calipers were removed and his teeth straightened out, he became quite the little scrapper. Now, his father and I would take the freakish rascal out with us and see what sport he could get us. One of our favourite tricks was to send him into a working man's club on a Sunday. You see, those places are full to bursting with absolute bruisers. But on a Sunday they become rather docile. Well, that's no fun for us, so we like to jig the buggers up a little. Don't suppose they minded that much. Well, we'd send Fluffy Arse in and tell him to order us drinks from the bar. My father and his friend are outside, he'd say. And they'd like a pint of sherry, you fat Come on. Then we'd get him to address the punters there in similar manner. My father and his friend say, what are you looking at, you fat ponces? Oh, this got them in a terrific heat. Within seconds, the doors would swing open and prime English fighting beef would stampede towards us. Come on. We had some splendid scraps, and of course Lilywhite would be in at the scrum, biting heels and calves, running around like a blasted little terrier. Hard to pull him off them sometimes. Since those days, his technique has vastly improved. Don't think he bites anymore. They do tell me he's a force to be reckoned with. I must say, though, he's never been too big for his father or myself to give him a darned good thrashing when he steps out of line. Only last week I took the slip at him. Can't remember what he'd done, mischievous pup. I'll tell you what, though. It was then that I saw that he doesn't actually have a fluffy arse, just a slightly downy one. Oh, supper time now, so I'll hurry along. Good stuff, this book, if you want to indulge in a bit of pavement crawling. But if you want to do a bit of rough shooting with serious military weaponry, then you should read my book, coming out soon. Military Weaponry for Rough Shooting, I've called it, full of good stuff. Wild boar shooting with an M79 grenade launcher. Flushing grouse on the Scottish moor with a flamethrower. Long-range rabbiting with a Barrett .50 sniper rifle. And the devilment continues. Preface. Why I was moved to write this book. As a child, I had buck teeth and a bowl haircut. I was terribly thin after having polio, and to add to my woes, I had to wear calipers on my arms. Because of my unfortunate appearance, I was bullied dreadfully at Eton. In fact, as proof of that, they named a pudding after me, Eton Mess. My father was incensed at what he called his disgusting and sickly thing, meaning myself. Over supper one evening, I remember my mother saying to him, "If you don't like the thing, then sort it out, dear." And my father replied, "By gad, I shall." And the almighty thud with which he hit the table made the soup tureen go crashing to the floor. So my father decided to try and harden me up. If anyone could do it, he could. Everyone has heard that Hitler only had one ball. Well, that was due to my father. He gave that Austrian cur a Cumberland sausage. My father was in a secret commando unit. He was well known to his compatriots as the gay garotter, before gay has the inference that it does today, born of his love for garrotting German sentries. You would know him as Colonel Titus Reginald Lilywhite III, MMD, CM, DSO, VC with bar. And so I began a long journey of becoming a man that my father could be proud of. It was a journey I very quickly warmed to. I learnt my pugilistic skills from Big Dick of Grimsby, bare-knuckle fighting champion of Grimsby, 1973. My fleet footwork from Joanna's Dance Academy. My judo from Sensei, Yamaha High Five, and my bear grips and physical brute strength from the world-renowned Ukrainian strongman Ivan Hujinikobolikov. I honed my resilience by being left naked, gagged, and my limbs tied when my father left me in the jungle in Malaya for a joke. On my safe return, he farther challenged me by entering me into cockfights under the pier in Brighton. I grappled a fine assortment of cocks in Brighton. I have, of course, many accolades, my greatest being the reigning and undisputed champion of the Great Britain and Northern Ireland Battle Royale. A 10-day-long, bare-knuckle, bare-bodied, no holds barred, no toilet breaks allowed, fight to the death. I impart all, well a lot, of my knowledge to you, dear reader. Julian Lilywhite, pugilist. The Street Fighter's Prayer. The street-fighting man has a fist, like a ham. He'll throw you a punch and you'll feel it. His limbs are of iron, he has the heart of a lion. If it's a fight that you seek, he will deal it. He'll box with the owls and brawl with the churls. He'll bang heads with any old blighter. So come, my lads, now, step away from the plough. Long life and success to the fighter. The history of street fighting. The time-honoured tradition of street fighting has a rich and varied history. It has long been a great love of gentlemen throughout time, even those hazy prehistoric times before gentlemen were even gentlemen. With the assistance of the esteemed historian and my very dear friend, Professor Harold Upman from Cambridge, he used to work at the university, but now lives in the city due to a misunderstanding involving the bio-tapestry and a large quantity of Calvados. I have pieced together a comprehensive history of my life's blood, street fighting. 3022 BC. The first fist fight, depicted in a cave painting, believed to have been initiated over the disputed possession of what appears to be a bison. Circa 2500 BC, Stonehenge, the first arena constructed in what is now England for the sole purpose of pugilism. Regular bouts held daily for the next 2,445 years. The name Stonehenge comes from the arena's stone construction and is named in honour of the first ever heavyweight street fighting champion, Dave Henge of Glastonbury, who stood over 12 feet tall, had the strength of 10 normal men, and could punch a mammoth to the ground. Circa 700 BC, people from all over the world come to England as it developed into a mecca for pugilism. This period in time was known as the Iron Age, due to the iron-fisted gentlemen of England. 55 BC. Romans invade Britain and make street fighting illegal in order to regulate the indigenous population, which drives it to retain the same underground status it enjoys to this day. 54 BC. Romans popularized street fighting and claim it as their own creation, but no one believed it, of course, as they are Italians. 52 BC. Roman populace found not to have a strong enough stomach for a good street fight. Traditional gladiatorial combat undergoes a resurgence. 23 AD. Jesus Christ is invited to Brixton in order to open the international street fighting Battle of the Celts. 806 AD, mass Viking invasion of Valhalla, a notorious gay bar in York, renowned for pugilistic activity. They loved it so much they stayed and wrote it into their mythological history, that when you die you go to Valhalla to drink and fight to your heart's content. And there's more, but I'm not going to read it all to you. The universally recognized street fighting commandments, first devised by Sir Malcolm Longfellow following a series of unruly bouts in 1850. The universally recognized street fighting commandments were shortly adopted nationwide in 1852 following a fracas that led to the imprisonment of no less than 43 gentlemen for various infractions, including Section 114BI, assault with livestock, Section 71Y, 5, brawling with dwarfs in a public place, and Section 43A, forcible anal intrusion with the phalanges. To prevent further incrimation of the fighting gentleman, Parliament decreed that in all manners of public fisticuffs, Sir Malcolm's commandments must be obeyed, else the participants shall feel the full force of the law. Sir Malcolm's commandments are still in effect to this very day. They are as follows: no pulling of moustache or hair, no fingers in the anus, no grabbing, tweaking or twisting of the nipples, no slapping of the face with an open hand, no insults to one's mother or parentage. The use of animals, children or food is forbidden. You cannot fight a man who is shedding tears. If a fellow's penile protection slips off, that fellow is allowed 6 seconds to rearrange it. If it slips off again, then woe betide you, sir, because you receive no further mercy. The victor is not allowed to demand sexual gratification from the loser. No brawling with midgets, dwarfs or cripples unless they number 2 or more. Street fighting etiquette. It is a common myth that you should not kick a man when he is down. I see no reason why one should not. After all, if you have the bounder on the ground, you want to make sure that he cannot get up again in a hurry. But things bring me on to street fighting etiquette, which is rather different from the commandments. My own code of conduct is as such: no sucker punches, no hitting someone when they're not expecting it. Never hit a man wearing glasses. Allow a chap time to remove his spectacles. Fingernails and toenails should be kept short and clean. A gentleman will never pull another fellow's hair. No interferences from one's friends or associates. No fighting a fellow who's under the influence of drugs or alcohol. No fighting in front of the ladies or children, even though my revered father often did this. Never boast about your bouts. Only a cad would do so. Give a chap time to go to the lavatory. Be gracious in both victory and defeat. Then we have a little of the art of intimidation with the use of facial hair. And then the next, we have hairstyles for pugilism. Next I'm going to read you Preparing the Body for Street Fighting. I am not going to go into any great detail here about normal bodily exercises. There are many other manuals which will inform you of how to strengthen your manly physique. I recommend Fighting Fit and Laughing by Professor Cornelius Livelong. You may do as you wish in this regard. I personally wake up at 4:07 a.m. daily without fail. I leap from my bed and roll onto a hard, no rug, floor and commence with 1,000 press-ups. I then do 83 Cossack lunges. I know that you will hardly believe this, but it is true, on my way to the bathroom for my morning urination. I then step into my shower, where I have an iron bar above my head. Here I do 268 chin-ups, whilst under a deluge of freezing cold water, thus invigorating my mind and body. But my exercises do not end here. I continue to exercise as I go about my normal day. My valet, of course, following me with a clean towel to mop my brow and oxters. But what I have repeatedly found is that no attention is ever paid to those areas of your body which lesser fighting men never use. You must learn to use your whole body as a mean fighting machine. Here are a few lesser-known exercises that will hone your body into a more complete fighting tool. Tongue. Incredibly useful for scooping out an opponent's eyeball or thrusting into an opponent's ear. The shock value here is magnificent. 165 tongue curls each day. Teeth. Biting, of course, and ripping of flesh, also the ability to absorb blows. Bite hard on a squash ball 201 times daily. Groin. Obviously the groin is limited in its uses as an offensive weapon, but it is a prime target for dirty, underhand ne'er-do-wells. To strengthen the groin, I recommend sitting down on a hard-backed chair. I favour mahogany. Extremely quickly and with great force 93 times daily. NB, you cannot wear underpants for this exercise. Fingers, for ripping, gripping, tearing, prodding, etc. A good exercise, which Professor Cornelius Livelong recommends and I practice daily, is to build up what he calls asbestos skin. A very easy move, continually picking up hot sausages from the frying pan as they cook. NB, make sure your cook doesn't mind the interruption and intrusion. If she does, you might find she's shy with your spotted dick. Elbows. One needs good sharp elbows, invaluable tools. This is very easy and rather sedentary exercise. Just half an hour each elbow with a plunger, tightly pulling at your elbow in a crooked arm position. A fine tip I learnt in the back streets of Bangkok from some young guy. Toes. Obviously useful to toughen a kick. Repeatedly stub your toes on a dining table leg for 36 minutes each foot. Feet. The icing on the cake of your kick. Get your chauffeur to drive one of your more heavy-duty cars from your fleet, laden with leather luggage, onto your feet for 5 minutes at a time, repeatedly curling your toes under the weight. NB. You must not wear any footwear for this exercise. Ribs. One requires hard and robust ribs to protect one's innards to a greater degree. I suggest 145 sit-ups. Each time you raise your body to sitting position, your valet delivers a resounding thwack to your ribcage with a cane. Eyes. If you close your eyes, even for a fraction of a second under an opponent's onslaught, you have lost valuable time. And potentially the upper hand. Damnably useful exercise, but not for the faint of heart, is that you stand or sit as you like and hold with 2 fingers each eye open. You then get your valet to repeatedly poke at your eyes with an unmanicured digit. A bit of a jagged nail, that sort of thing is pretty useful. This can be rather grueling, so I suggest starting with just 58 pokes each eye at first, progressing to a solid 97 pokes an eye. Of course, there are many more exercises one can engage in. The limit is your imagination and your pain threshold. Personally, I am a strong believer that the more painful an exercise, the more beneficial it is. The physical differences in the male species. I am sure I have previously told you that physically you, as a gentleman, have a great advantage over the working man. Your body will always be a perfect tool for fighting, whereas the working man is 79% unfortunate of build. The following accurate illustrations will show you just what you have to expect when pavement brawling. Now, one thing that a man of the lower orders does have, which is very useful to them, is a very short and substantial neck. This lack of neck makes the head stay in place rather more rigidly than the elegant head and swan-like neck of a true gentleman. I'm not talking of the self-made man here, the nouveau riche, or the man who frequents golf clubs. So, dear sirs, do make sure you deliver your head punches with great vigour, or it may be your undoing. A very great disadvantage that the working class man has is the extremely large nature of their genitalia. They have whoppingly huge penises and bollocks the size of large grapefruits. These are incredibly easy to target. You can't miss them. So a good kick to the groin area is always a useful move you're in any sort of enfeebled state. This, of course, is highly unlikely. Street fighting on the move. Balance. That's what one needs. A gentleman street fighter needs to be able to defend himself or initiate an attack under any conditions, whether that's on the corner of a busy thoroughfare, down a dark alleyway, or on the back of a speeding motorcycle. One needs balance, dexterity, and presence of mind under such conditions. We have all heard the story of Major Reginald Blunkum, hero of the skies in World War I, who fought with 2 Germans on the wings of his Sopwith camel. He beat the blighters to a pulp before he regained control of his plane and then made a perfect landing. Only last week I took a jaunt to some place on the locomotive. Some dreadful chap chanced into first class, obviously not his natural setting. I was just in the act of seating myself with a cup of coffee when the swaggering lout lunged into me. Coffee all over my vest. Well, if anyone had it coming to them, it was he. "You, sir," I cried, "on the roof now." "Fuck off, you posh twat," he retorted, and so I dragged the bounder by the scuff of his flabby neck onto the roof, where we found gainful employment. Fighting in such a manner is no easy business for the clumsy of body. One needs to be able to ride the bumps and dips, the sharp corners and the sudden haltings. Some of us are naturally blessed with elegance of gait and perfect deportment. If you are not so blessed, then there are various exercises you can practice to perfect these qualities. One always has horses. When not in the hunting season, it is a good time to invest in the following exercises. Unsaddle and unbridle your mount, and learn to ride as the Red Indian warriors did. I shouldn't bother with a walk, any clod can do that, but I should go straight into a gallop. Once you have mastered the bareback gallop, then you progress to a standing position on your steed, and of course your aim is to a standing bareback gallop. The more wild and untamed your horse, the better you will train yourself. Once you have achieved bareback galloping and fence jumping with your hands tied firmly beneath your buttocks, you will be ready to take on any blighter on the move. My chum, Hugo Twistleton Gaffoon, is a rather fast chap. Had a great passion for motorcycles, don't you know? My first fight on the move was indeed with Gaffoon. We were in our youth, 18 years old to be exact. We were riding his Triumph motorcycle down the deep lanes of Devonshire when we heard the most appalling noise behind us. I turned to see a gang of rough-looking individuals, similarly on motorcycles. My guess is that there were at least 80 of them. These hooligans were gesticulating in a rather alarming manner at us. I called into Hugo's ear to turn his head and take a look. "Shall we take them on, Hugo? What say you?" "Gosh, no," Hugo replied. "I've just had these trousers newly tailored this very morning." Gaffoon is no coward, but his first thought is always his garb, I am afraid. "Well, put on a spurt," he called back to me. "They won't be able to catch up with chlamydia." Such was the unfortunate name he bestowed upon his first motorcycle. Well, the Ophid men of Morris, hardened individuals attired in Morris dancing attire, known for the love of motorcycles and stick dancing, who think Morris dancing is martial art. Well, they couldn't keep up with us, but I yearned for a little sport. "Slow down a little, Hugo," I said, and when any of those pagan ruffians came anywhere near, I hauled them from the seat of their vehicles, raised them into the air, and gave them an almighty kick sideways, where they landed with great indignity in the hedgerow. I think they would have had to have quelled rather a few real ales that night to get over the shock of such an experience. My love of street fighting on the move started from that balmy afternoon. There are various combatives, moves. So I'm going to read you just a couple. The Cumberland sausage. I know you will accuse me of being a hypocrite when I include the Cumberland sausage in this book. It is not a move that I advocate, but it is a move that many of you will know. For myself, I believe that a man's genitalia should never be handled in anything but a seductive manner. But I know there are moments of great extremity in street fighting, and also there can be times when a quick sausage grab will give you thinking time, and so it just passes the Lilywhite test. There is no great brain power needed for the Cumberland sausage. You just go for the ghoulies and squeeze or twist until either the ruffian is on his knees or you have decided on a more cerebral and gentlemanly move. I may add that only on one occasion have I employed the Cumberland sausage, and I used it then not on a man, but in fact on 2 grizzly bears, whilst I was eating a salmon sandwich in the wilds of Canada. The story would take too long to relate here, but just let me tell you that I was ambushed by 2 bears. I administered the Cumberland sausage to them both at the same time, and when in agony they knocked their heads together, I used their momentary dazed condition to make a rather hasty exit. I had no intention of continuing this bestial brawling, as I am a great admirer of bears, and I didn't want to cause any serious harm to the dear blighters. But you will no doubt conclude wisely that if the Cumberland sausage has this effect on Ursus, it will have a far greater effect on your generally ill-formed ruffian. The Knightsbridge knuckle shuffle. This is my favourite move. If you also have a lavatorial humour, then it will appeal to you as it does to me. Frank Brawny, Knightsbridge bare-knuckle boxing champion 1918 to 1932, taught me this move over rather a few whiskies in his old age. I laughed like a dog when he described how the Knightsbridge knuckle shuffle, now to be called KKS, works, but I hardly believed it would be possible to achieve the result he promised. But it never fails. You need to be in the right physical position for this move, and you have to have a good memory because it takes a while to remember. To perform the KKS, you need to be facing square your opponent. You need your hands free and ease of movement in your body, for what you are about to deliver will make them truly thankless. You need to memorize this combination, and no other will do, of punches and where to aim them. The punches are quite simply a series of left and right hooks to the body, to be exact, on the flanks between the uppermost part of the hips and the middle rib. The combination is as follows. Left, 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 right. Left, right, right, left. Right, 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 left. Left, right, 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 left, right, 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 right. The final punch must be driven straight into the stomach with maximum force. It is this combination of punches which disturbs the delicate equilibrium of the bowels, sending them into turmoil. As your last punch is delivered, before your fist comes once again to rest by your side, you will see the other fellow shit his britches, as Frank Brawny described it. I promise it will cause you much hilarity. I performed this move only last night, and I can still hear very clearly what the fellow uttered as sweat poured down his face. "Oh, fuck! I'm dumping myself!" The Lincolnshire Lick. The Lincolnshire Lick is not so much a move, but a means of humiliation. It puts a ruffian in his place. The name comes from the 8th Cardinal of Grimsby, who would follow non-churchgoers about, knock them to the floor with his rosewood and weighted priest, and urinate on their prostate form. Urinating anywhere on the body is allowable, although not on the face. Some of the lower forms of humanity find this deplorable act salacious. Urinating on someone is akin to spitting on them. It is a vile and intrusive act, but sometimes necessary and gratifying. It has been proven by Dr. Hector Finkel at the University of Bad Aussee that 87% of street fighters feel the physical urge to micturate at the end of a bout. So the Lincolnshire Lick becomes an anatomically blessed relief. The Yorkshire Tea Job. You may wonder where I got my vast knowledge of street fighting. You will of course think it odd that such a one as I could come into contact with the ruffians and hooligans who indulge in such activities. But where there is any means of combat, you will find Julian Lilywhite. I am a profound lover of what Mrs. Lilywhite would call brawling. It is my life's blood. I will not indulge in fisticuffs with creatures who are greatly inferior in strength to me, but I will always take on a worthy combatant, and that will lead me down streets and alleys where I will meet a great many ruffians, and even the roughest and the toughest break bread together. Unless I have slain my foe, I like, after fisticuffs have taken place, to indulge in fighting talk, gleaning as much as I can from different quarters, and I generally find that a fighting man of any class likes to indulge himself in pugilistic conversation, although I shall add here that we fighting men are not great talkers, we are men of action. I remember where I was when I first heard of the Yorkshire Tea Job, and it was indeed in Yorkshire. I was just exiting a hostelry while en route to Scotland, and I happened to witness a fracas between some gigantic, muscled, shaven-headed fellow, absolutely covered in those tattoos that the working classes favour, and a rather diminutive, bald-headed, crippled man. The language was getting rather fruity, and I made my way over to see them, to see if I could be of any help to the righteous side. I heard the able-bodied ruffian say, "You'll fucking get it, you will, you runty cunt." And then the crippled man, who was drinking a freshly made cup of tea, answered, "One lump or two, you fat bastard," and threw the contents of his cup in the other man's face. Now, when the muscled ruffian brought his hands to his face in shock and in pain, the sickly man then bashed him on the head with the now empty cup and said, "Now, up at you, fucking tosser." I have no idea what this word means, or you'll be getting the blimmin' saucer too. I watched this whole scenario with something of delight, of course, and as I turned my back on this enlightening scene and headed to my vehicle, I heard the landlord say to some person, "Ooh, ducks, did you see that? He gave him the Yorkshire Tea Job, plucky fucker." You know just as much as I do now of the YTJ. If some creature is getting your goose and you happen to be holding a cup of tea, you have no need to feel encumbered by said beverage. You simply hurl the contents of your cup at the blighter's face. If this does not stop him in his tracks, you follow on immediately with a resounding thwack on the forehead with the saucer. There is more, but I'm not going to read it. But if you've enjoyed what you've heard so far, and if you would like a copy signed by Julian of this delightful book, you can follow my link underneath and buy it, because I am acting for Julian and selling them. This first edition is limited to 100 copies. Hush-a-bye, hush-a-bye, oh my darling, don't you cry. Guardian angels up above, take care of the ones I love. Ooh, 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 ooh. Hush-a-bye, hush-a-bye, hush-a-bye. Good night.